Yeah, I want to go back to what you said about national politics because we were discussing last week's episode. We were talking about the huge shift, right? Like it's pretty incredible to see. I think I did the math. It's like over 50% of California counties went red as opposed to in the past. Um, and we were asking, is that a Trump effect or is that a California effect? I'm of the belief it's actually a California effect. Um, and I imagine as a candidate running in a presidential election year, it's got to be tough to not be dragged into the national politics to constantly comment on the national politics when you're just trying to say, hey, look, there's a lot of issues here in California. And like, yes, the presidential election's happening right now. I want to discuss these issues. How tough was that for you out on the campaign trail for people who wanted to keep dragging you into the national politics?
Everyone wanted to drag me into national politics, and I had to readjust their questions and my responses to refocus them on California.
Mm.
There's significant issues happening in California. And if we get distracted by the national piece, we'll never be able to focus on the California piece. So it was a challenge. And everywhere I went, I was, hey, what do you think about this happening in Ukraine and Russia and all these other pieces? And I said, I would come back and say, well, what do you think about what's happening in Calexico and Imperial and in Coachella? And they'd ask me some questions, and I'd have to refocus them because honestly, as you know, and as your people watching, there's a ton of things going on in California that need to be fixed. And if I'm focused on the national, I can't be focused on the California issue.
Right. And your job as a legislator is not to focus on the national.
Right.
For your community.
My job is to focus on delivering for my community in California.
Yeah, it's interesting. I gotta imagine it's got to be tough out there during a presidential year, especially with such a figure as Trump out there. But I was glad to see that we are trending that way. We had looked back at the county map back when Brian Dolly ran for governor, and it looks oddly similar. That was actually Camille found that and shared it with me. And it is interesting to kind of see where we are kind of moving this direction. So I was not surprised to see. I was definitely rooting for you in the election. I was definitely watching your race because you were a guest of the show and you're a good guy. Um, and then Leticia Castillo as well. There was another seat flip. So I was rooting for these seats to flip, but I was not shocked by it, if that makes sense, based on where we are in California. And I think a lot of people gloss over the fact and the accomplishments that candidates like yourself are making here in California and the hard work that you guys are doing just because they say, oh, well, Trump flipped these counties. And it's like, maybe because a lot of people showed up because it was a presidential election, but people still have to show up and vote for you. Like, that's what I think is amazing. And I think that trend is, I believe the trend is going to continue in that direction. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that point. If Trump flipped these counties, then every county that he flipped, we would have a Republican in there, right? That would kind of be the logical piece. I think it was an almost like an enhancement, right? Number one, California is underwater with a whole bunch of different issues. That's the first piece of the puzzle. Number two, nationally, there's issues going on and inflation, so on and so forth, wars around the world. So that's the second piece. Years of the same old is the third piece. And then you get a good candidate in play, and you have a good national candidate that's echoing the problems of the people. All of that combined helps to flip a seat. So it works together. It's not just, hey, just Trump. I'm glad that he was doing what he was doing. But at the same token, there's a lot of us out there that were working hard to make sure that we were also communicating our message so that we can push towards a common sense solution for California.
Speaking of someone else who would like to be president someday, after election, our esteemed governor, Gavin Newsom, went on a tour of the red counties to explain to red counties, or in his words, try to connect to red counties, why California is doing a great job for them. And really, you guys don't understand why you voted the way you did. And I'm here to explain it. Have you been following his red county tour? And what are your thoughts on what he's telling people in those areas? What are your thoughts generally on the whole red county tour that he's doing?
I think it's a waste of not only his time, and the California Air Resource Board should impose some type of levy for him using all of the oxygen in the air and polluting with the nonsense that he's talking about. Because here's the reality: we see right through it. We see right through it. And when I mean we, I mean we Republicans, we independents, and we Democrats. As you can see by the data, we see through it. So his waste of time, his waste of money, all those things, they're going on deaf ears, because the reality is his time is up. Lame duck season is here. And thankfully, it's right in time for the next 2 years of us trying to help California move in the direction of a balanced California versus an imbalanced, lack of common sense California that it's been. And I've talked to several of these new legislators on the Democrat side, and a lot of them are saying the same thing. They're like, it's time for change. We need balance, because it was a mandate to us, and we're here because of that mandate. So I want to work with them to make sure that we keep driving that issue.
His tour is so insulting. It's like the abusive ex or something, or like the bad boyfriend who puts you down. Oh, you've gained too much weight. You're not attractive anymore. And you're crying, and they're like, oh, but I'm here for you for your tears. Like, it's so, oh, it's maddening and it's sick. Like, it's just like, go home, Gavin.
What was the name of the guy who would
One of your homes you want, just go home.
What was the name of the guy who would say, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today on Popeye? Was it the Hamburglar?
No, that's a McDonald's thing. What is his name? I know who you're
Remember
talking
that
about.
guy, right? So that's
Yeah.
what it feels like when he's going out. He's like, hey, give me this today, but I'll take care of you tomorrow. No, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's a waste of time, energy, and effort. And honestly, it's an insult to common sense folks across California.
It is.
Well, there was a video today of Ashley Zavala asking him a poignant question about the fact that disability taxes are going to go up 0.1% next year. And people just found out about it. It just happened. And she asked him point blank, do you think you could have been more transparent with Californians that taxes are going up because of this next year? And he went on this long diatribe about, well, California is one of the few states that requires, family sick leave and this and that and da-da-da. And he danced around the subject to make it sound like, look, we've done such great things here in California, and we have this and we have that and da-da-da. But he never answered the question about, well, why weren't you transparent in telling people taxes are going to go up? So he's a master at putting out word salad in that term. Like, he's just very good at dodging the question, answering with a whole nother answer that has nothing to do with the question. And I think that doesn't ring true in the counties that he's visiting. And I think it to Camille's point, it is insulting, because it's kind of like, well, we are asking you the poignant question of, are you going to explain why taxes are going to go up, or why didn't you tell us taxes were going to go up? And then he goes off on this other thing and explains to you something else about why, nothing to do with why taxes are going up, which makes it seem like you don't deserve an answer as to why taxes are going up.
He's
But I'm
like,
going to talk about this other stuff.
thank us for these taxes and don't ask questions.
Yeah.
Hey, sir, may I have another?
Yeah, exactly. It's
when I was 13, I had braces, and I need to know everything. I was all, like, everything, like, well, why are you doing this? What is this going to do? How long is this going to take? How much is this going to hurt? And my orthodontist told me, stop asking questions. Just let me do my work. And okay, I'm sure he had plenty of 13-year-old patients who were very annoying, but for me, I was like, no, I need to know. surprisingly, when I complained to my mom about this like month after month, she actually let me switch. Like she full on switched orthodontist, which I'm sure wasn't easy. But like I I need to know everything. Why are we doing this? Like, okay, I need like why isn't there why aren't you transparent about this? What is this going to do for us? How long is this going to last? Like that's how I am. That's how I've always been. And for him to just be like, let me tell you why this is good for you and why we're different, and not answer your question and tell you basically shut up, sit down, smile. I know this episode is not supposed to be about why Gavin Newsom shouldn't be president, but this is why Gavin Newsom shouldn't be president.
Or about what?
I'll sit down, shut up, and color. Just pay attention,
Exactly.
drink the Kool-Aid, and that's what everything's going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay, and it's not okay. It's not okay because if we dissect the data and we look at what people are saying, both of those are revealing the same thing. California is failing, and it's due to the leadership of Gavin Newsom. But I believe that there's a new day. And I believe that with new legislators who are also seeing the same thing, and by the way, I have great hope for my colleagues across the aisle. I'm an optimist, right? I've met several of them, and I've heard their story, and I've heard what they want to do and how they want to change. My hope is that they won't go party line, but they'll stand up for their community. But the reality is Gavin Newsom is not about California. Gavin Newsom is about Gavin Newsom. And
Absolutely.
that's what he's doing when he dances around.
I think it's almost fitting we have you on after the episode we had last week about our California Democrats starting to panic, because my estimation is based on what I'm seeing and a lot of, coming to Jesus moments. You have Scott Wiener, who had a coming to Jesus article. The San Jose mayor went on the news and had this whole thing about, I don't agree with Gavin Newsom going on this Red County tour. We need to work on California making it work again. So I think it's fitting that you're here, because I'm sure you've had these conversations, like you said, with some Democratic colleagues in the legislature now who are kind of looking at the map going, whoa, this wasn't a small shift. It wasn't like, oh, it's cute, the Republicans picked up a couple seats and we'll win them back next time. To them, I think they saw a sea of red take over California. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you may know this better than I do, but I think they saw the data and when we are on the precipice of momentum completely changing in California. And if we don't change our ways, before we know it, we'll be looking back going, hey, remember when we had a supermajority and now it's a 50-50 legislature? Boy, that was great when we had a supermajority. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I spoke to a lot of them privately and at dinners and then walking in the halls. And yes, they are concerned with the redness of California. But they also realize that it was the, if you will, the doing or the undoing of the Democratic legislature in California. And they don't want to lose. They've worked hard to get there and they don't want to lose their job. So they're going to have to adapt and overcome to the way that the population is starting to think. So for me, like I said, I see hope. I see a lot of, and I've spoken to a lot of them and they're like, yeah, let's work together. Great. I don't like super majorities. I'm not a fan of that. I believe in balance, right? You have your opinion. I have my opinion. Let's talk. Let's figure out a middle ground. I'm for that, right? If it can always be this 50-50 and then we have this conversation, I'd be okay with that. But unfortunately, that's not the case. When they are looking back at these years and years of failed policies, the new legislators are saying, man, we got to do something different. Or else we're going to be a two-term Tommy and we're at it.
I remember on the last show, we had talked about you working in this legislature with a supermajority. And your top line thing was, I know I'm going to have to work with those across the aisle. Does this election and the results of this election make it look like it'll be easier to work with people across the aisle? in terms of getting stuff done, or do you think? I mean, it's might be too early. It might be too early to say. The new session hasn't started. But your preliminary do you think there is at least a mood or a kind of a want of like, hey, let's work together on some things, or
Yeah,
what are
I
your
think
takeaways?
there's some early adopters that are willing to make some moves, right? You have the folks that pragmatic people, legislators that are willing to come across the aisle and say, what can we do to fix California? A lot like the problem solvers caucus is supposed to be, hey, how do we work together to make this happen? I'd love for the entire body to be a problem solvers caucus and figure out how we work together, but that's not always the case. You know, we don't get what we want. So I've spoken to them. They want to make some changes, but I think it's still, honestly, I think it's still too early to see, because old habits die hard. They're gonna want to you know take control and do what they normally do and flex the supermajority. But I think it's going to backfire on them, and they better start playing across the aisle.
Hey, thanks for checking out the California Underground podcast. If you enjoyed that clip, make sure you subscribe, like, share, review, comment, all that stuff that helps with the algorithm, helps people find us more. And if you want to learn more, you can always listen to our full podcast at Apple, Spotify, Google, all those different places that you basically find podcasts. Or if you just want to keep watching clips, you can check out clips here, or you can subscribe to our channel right here, somewhere in here.